Okay, I don't know how many of you actually know me, but I am, my name is Róisín De Buitlear. I'm working and living in Dublin. I'm an independent artist working with glass as a primary material. And I trained at the National College of Art and Design in the craft design programme there in the early 80s, and have been working with glass ever since in lots of different capacities. I did teach at the National College of Art and Design for 18 years, but I left there in 2003 initially to pursue other avenues and no longer teach there, but continue as an educator in different aspects. Much of my work is collaborative, and I am continually inspired by glass. And so this presentation is about collaboration. It's about my contact with glass and what my feelings are about what's actually happening in contemporary glass making in Ireland, and with a particular focus on glass production in a hot sense. So that's just to give you a little bit of an outline. In my collaborative work, I work with many different types of artists, with craftsmen in different countries, and travel a lot for different projects that I've been working on. So the crisis that is happening in the manufacturing of glass is not an Irish problem. It's not a special Irish problem. It's a worldwide problem, and we are at a huge junction in the future of what's actually going to happen to glass manufacturing in general. So it is a subject that I'm looking at both internationally but particularly nationally. And while I was a student at the National College of Art and Design, our glass programme there was heavily supported by Waterford Crystal in its sponsorship of providing raw material to actually melt glass. So I learned how to blow glass, actually using recycled glass from lead crystal pieces from Waterford, and it was through their generous sponsorship that the programme continued to run in the NCID. Through that interaction also, I had the opportunity to go up and down to the factory quite a few times and meet a lot of the craftsmen who were working there. So that is how I started to have a relationship with the factory. And then later, as a lecturer, I initiated many different collaborations and projects, both in the design sense and in a practical way of actually building liaisons between the students that I was working with and the factory itself. And through the generosity of many of the craftsmen who dedicated extra hours and other, outside time to working with them, many of those students had incredible experiences of working in a factory production, but working from an artistic perspective, not from an industrial one. So I witnessed both the heyday of that factory, where there were like 4,000 people working there, and also the decline that started through the introduction of massive automation and changes in marketing policy. And that is not also just an Irish problem, it is an international problem too. So I was standing by, watching it happening, talking to people who were experiencing the changes as an individual, as a human being, with big families and heritage within that tradition. And slowly but surely it started to impact on me. For me, glass is a real passion, and anybody who has ever spent any time with me talking about my work and my engagement with the material will find that from me, that it's something that inspires me continually. I love the history of it. I love the actual method of making. I am a maker, and I love teaching people about it, opening up the world of that material to people. It is about the alchemy for me. It is about this incredible, beautiful liquid material that transforms from this golden, untouchable fireball to something that is solid and reflects light and translates light and becomes something else. So it is about both the making of the object, but also what the transformation of that material from this liquid to a tangible material that you can handle. Working with glass has allowed me to travel enormously. It's part of who I am. And in that travel, I've also discovered who I am, both in a cultural sense and also in an artistic sense. And I've met and worked with the most remarkable people in a fraternity through which this glass is a common language. And we have a massive glass family which you can connect with in any country in the world without having any words or any real language. You have the language in your hands and in how you work and your dedication to the material. So that has really been a big factor for me. And I have also had the opportunity to be able to educate people about what's happening in Ireland and talk about my passion for my own country and my culture and through this material. And so for me, that's something that is also hugely important. And I continue to do that. Even next week, I'm traveling again to do that again. So this work, sorry, machine. Go back again. Help, technology. Okay, we happy? Okay, so the work that I have produced for this exhibition is my personal reaction to what's actually happening in the glass industry, and particularly in relation to the factory in Waterford. It is particularly in relation to the factory in Waterford because Waterford represents what's actually has happened in large-scale glass manufacturing in Ireland. When I was a student in the 80s, there was Cavan, Tyrone, Galway, and Waterford. They were major employers of glassmakers in the country, and they were also world leaders from the point of view of glass manufacture. Right now, there is only one remaining manufacturing unit of all of those factories I've just mentioned, and that is Waterford, which has relocated to the city centre now, right beside the Bishop's Palace in the old ESB unit there. And what I wanted to do with this work was to tell the story of my own making, but also to tell the national story a little bit of what is actually happening with glass making, and to use it as a call to action, to value what we really have in this country and to reevaluate how we are treating those skills. This piece that I've made is called Honour, Defend and Action. And I wanted to think about how we are honouring the skills that we actually have had in the country, and that comes back to Sean, what you were talking about, about looking at the value of what we have had in both in a cultural legacy of the skill base, but also in what we actually really have right now today as well within the actual skill factor that we have. Thousands of men still very, very, very highly skilled living in this country, driving forklifts and using plumbing skills, learning new skills, but having carried this legacy of skill over 15, 20, 40 years, still living and breathing perfectly healthily in Ireland. So that is one of the things that I wanted to talk about, how we honour the history of our craft, particularly in relation to glass, how we defend what is actually happening to the process right now, and what action we're going to take about how to put this proper value on this incredible heritage that we have. Since the taking of this photograph and the actual mounting of the exhibition, the red piece, which is Honour, was damaged in the exhibition. by accident. But I think it's kind of interesting. It's now not in the exhibition anymore and sitting on my kitchen table with the top part broken off. And I'm looking at it saying, well, there's honour, it's damaged. Will I actually put it back into the exhibition and put a note on that, which would probably make a stronger statement that it originally was. It has lost the beauty of this incredible sort of quality now that it's broken, but I'm trying to justify it and also not having enough time to remake it for the next venue of art and industry, so I might have to do that. These pieces are based on the Viking spears from the National Museum in Dublin, which I love. The pieces themselves, they have this sort of incredible beauty about them, kind of a sentinel or a sentry, standing there watching over. Yet they were weapons when they were first made. And this is also a statement about Waterford itself, which is currently building a medieval museum to house the beautiful Viking collection. But in Waterford itself, there is no museum of glass. There is nowhere that you can actually go and find a really comprehensive, interesting study of what our glass history is about. You can have the factory version of 2013 with all its glittering marketing, but if you really want to get to the bones of what has happened and what is our legacy of glass in this country, in the largest glass centre, it isn't certainly there. So that is also my statement in making this piece. So right now in Ireland, there are 10 remaining glass blowers working in Waterford Crystal. That is the sum total of blowers that we now have in that factory. And coming from a workforce of 4,000, to me, that's incredibly shocking. There are 16 cutters, and the rest is outsourced all over Europe. So that is the reality of what glassmaking is from a national point of view. Now, down the road, 2.5 kilometres, there's Joe Williams, which is a sweet little workshop. Joe is a former worker himself, very astute businessman, producing very high quality handmade products with a small workforce, but with great integrity. I admire him hugely because he is helping people who are in Waterford itself to, accessing moulds, accessing technical information, really feeding into his own people technical information and giving them a help to actually get started. And he has been very important to Irish Handmade Glass, which is a very small workshop, which is about 200 metres from the factory itself, which was set up by 4 former workers, 3 blowers and a glass cutter. And it is here that I made all of the work for this exhibition. And it is about also my dialogue with those men that this exhibition is about. So it's about an interaction of both my skills and their skills and sharing stories between us as we are making and me telling the story of their glassmaking experiences as the factory is evolving and changing. So it's a small workshop that's an independent setup, well supported by the Crafts Council and also by government grants. And they make a small production of their own and sell to retail places in a domestic market, but also they sell directly from the shop. They interact with the public, telling their story, and it is working very well at the moment and has become a very interesting and vibrant place from the point of view of actual social interaction. It has become a kind of a nesting place for the displaced workers. Every day there are people who come in to hear the factory sounds and to be with the glass in a situation where they can speak freely and talk and just hang out and actually sort of see what's going on and what they're making and to support them. And their local community is also very supportive. On the left-hand side there is Fred Curtis, who would have been one of the top sculptors in Waterford Crystal, who set up on his own, lives in Wexford. In Banno Bay, has a small studio there and is one of the finest cutters and carvers and sculptors of cold glass. He can turn anything from a lump of crystal into anything. And he was responsible for many of those trophy type iconic pieces that you would have seen being presented as Waterford glass sort of major pieces in the golden era. And he runs a small business of his own, making very beautiful pieces. He last year made the piece that was presented to Obama at on the St. Patrick's Day. So I work there often. I rent the studio on a daily basis. It's very, very expensive. I use the facilities. I work with the men both in a team situation and both for their physical skill, but in this scenario, for their oral history skill as well. And as part of a larger project that I'm working on, I have gathered a lot of oral histories of the men from a maker's perspective. And many of those pieces, or some of those pieces, are included in the exhibition, telling the story of the lives of the men. Included in that, in this exhibition, there is a small clip of a shopkeeper who was in Dingle, who's still there, very good businessman, and he talks a little bit about the impact on his business, how the decline of the glass industry has impacted on his business. And we're talking about recessionary times. In the 1980s, he was shipping monthly out of Dingle €250,000 worth of Waterford crystal in the 1980s from Dingle. So if you can imagine that he was shipping that out of Dingle, what were they shipping out of Killarney and what were they shipping out of Dublin, you know? And he is incredibly angry about what has happened to his business and the potential of business for him, you know, with the impact of how the factory has declined. I mean, he still says he could easily sell a hell of a lot of glass if the Providence was there. So, you know, we've spent quite a lot of time talking about Providence. So there's a lot of anger around, and one of the things that impacted on me was I had an opportunity to do a residency in the Museum of Glass a number of years ago in 2010, and I started to start working on this as a bigger picture when I was there during the residency. And as part of my public profile, the Museum of Glass put up some of the images of striking workers, and I hadn't seen any of this television imagery for quite some time, and to actually see the imagery of the anger of people, you know, sort of trying to defend their manufacturing process and their livelihoods, coming across as part of an image of what people see as Irish glass was terribly, terribly shocking to me. And it brought forward these pieces. I wanted to sort of put that out there during this exhibition to sort of say, well, look, you know, these are men, these are people, these are families, these are individuals who have been really affected by this change in manufacturing process, and that they have something that they want to hang on to and want to defend. And it was through, you know, trying to negotiate and find a newer model, a new way that didn't succeed, that actually ended up closing the factory at the end of the day, and led to this scenario, which is the auction of the final selling off of all of the machinery from the factory, which happened in 2009, the 25th of September. And I went to the factory to view the auction. I had tried to get into the factory many times to take photographs of it before it actually closed, and even through massive negotiation, including government ministries, etc. I didn't succeed in doing that. I actually did succeed in getting a date and arrived with my gear, etc., etc., but eventually I wasn't allowed to document at all. So these photographs were taken between myself and an Australian artist called Itzal Taziman, and we did it in secrecy. And this is a photograph of one of the cutting shops. There were 24 altogether, and each one of these machines represents an individual person who worked at these machines for over 20, 25, 30 years, and each of these machines were sold individually. On the left are design books and drawings from the factory, which are in cardboard boxes going out the door, no lot numbers, they were all being just dumped. And on the right were cutting wheels, which actually produce that carved surface of the glass that we know as of Waterford crystal, of those cut marks. It's actually carved into the glass by holding the glass like this and then carving into this rotating wheel on a lathe. You get this cut line, and the profile of the actual wheel determines what that cut line is. So it's either round or sharp, etc. And each of those wheels, there's a rough cut and then there's a smooth cut. And as I went around, there were many, many different nationalities of people there, all looking to buy. And there were many, many people from Waterford who wanted to buy too. This is an engraving lathe, which was part of the engraving shop. There were maybe 15 engravers all at one time. It's a very, very, very difficult technique to learn. It's a drawing and carving technique, which you use a little small wheel like the size of a cent to actually make a surface onto the glass. It carries a little piece of carborundum, a little bit of grit, carved into the surface, and it's an incredibly delicate and difficult technique to learn. There are about 125 experts at this left, and there are 15 at least with incredible skill living in Waterford, no longer working. And this particular machine was lot 27, don't have my glasses on now, 276, and all of this equipment was being sold online on the internet. And the man who had worked this particular machine had wanted to buy back this machine so he could actually start working on it at home. It's a cottage industry. It started as a cottage industry. It's something that can really be done very easily on your kitchen table, and you can make a pretty decent living out of it because it's a very, very specialised area. This guy was not allowed, and neither were any of the actual engravers, anybody allowed to personally buy back any part of the machinery that they had sat and worked with all of their lives. None of them. So I ended up on the day of the auction, and I had a lot of people who were trying to buy machinery in the glass community. As I said, we were a family, talking to them saying, don't buy 279, don't buy 294, don't buy 666, it's his machine, he wants to buy it back. So we were trying to block, other people buying so that they could actually buy their machines back again. To me, you can hear the anger in my voice. So that was the reality of it can turn into big numbers. It can tell you, yes, the thing is in decline, but it isn't, it's part of a big mega company that closes down, but the reality of it is that it can still exist in a different way if there is creativity and there is some kind of understanding that it is real lives and real people, real skills in people's hands that you can deal with and look at again. So for me, it was more than a sellout for me. It was just an abandonment of our heritage, of our skill, and another whittling away of our cultural identity. And the lack of integrity just, hit me so hard. And I felt, well, I have a voice and I can say something about it. So, and I know, and I can speak knowledgeably about it because I know what's involved here. So I'm going to try and use it and see how I can refigure it. So what lies between art and industry, and where is the future? And I think the cover of this book, which is very, very old, maybe has the answer to glass. In French it means glass between functional and prestige. So glass used for both function and for prestige. So I do believe that industrialization and technological advances has a huge part to play in the making of functional wear, and I do think it has a huge amount to do with the future. This is Nuutjärvi Glass Village and Glassworks in Finland, and this is also as an iconic and a factory as Waterford Crystal would be to the Finnish psyche, and it produces, uses all different processes, not just the hand process, but also massive technology in pressing and fast methods that were also introduced into Waterford. But it does it with a different type of integrity that was set up by Kai Frank, the iconic designer from which has carried an identity, but carries also a Finnish identity of its own. Also Alvar Aalto, carrying the Itala brand. Both these companies work together, but they have a different sort of ethic in how they look at developing the design ideas. They have artists who come in, they feed the design process. They're innovative about pushing things through both the functional aspect of things, but also carrying the artistic side of it, so that they're feeding. One is feeding into the other. They have a school program. They have a village of artists who live there, working specifically with glass. They are continually exhibiting. They have outside artists coming in to work. For example, Dante Marioni. Let's hope this is going to work. Okay, I just wanted to give you a little bit of taste of what that was like, and the reality of working in a glass workshop. It isn't all beautiful. It's hot and difficult and noisy, and it is an industrial process. Even though this particular maestro works in a small scale with himself and Janusz, his assistant, who's also a glass artist, and he has become a world brand. He's a Seattle-based artist who's American, and has become a brand in himself because of his own making skills. He is probably one of the best glassmakers in the world, is followed religiously by a community of people who are interested in the making process, but also as a carrier of traditional skills. He trained in Italy and works from a very traditional perspective, but in excellence in actual making. And this is one of the interesting phenomena about glassmaking itself, is that it has this hand skill with an industrial application at the same time. And so he would be an exponent of incredible skill that has been honed over a number of years, but coming from no tradition whatsoever, because he went to Italy to learn it from the maestros in Italy, and has now gone on to be one of the greatest teachers and exponent of this high quality craftsmanship. This is not mold blown, it's simply blown by hand in a way that would have been done in the Middle Ages. Nothing has changed. He's just a very, very, very good skilled craftsman with a design aesthetic that is based on tradition, and has become a really, really well collected and really well sought after individual, and has become a champion for Italian techniques, which have brought people back to Italy to learn these techniques, which were once secretive and not, never shared, but now has become a sort of a source for people to go back and find this new technique, and has become a huge exponent of cultural tourism in a way, looking at a craft base. And from that, there has been many, many spin-offs glass shops and glass schools and glass galleries and people collecting, and a massive interest in learning about technical skill and aesthetics of Italian glassmaking. I had the opportunity to work with Dante in Pilchuck Glass School, and he was the man who blew the net shape that became the stamp that the Crafts Council that used my image of my glass for the collection of stamps that were produced last year. So as an exponent also of craft and the handmade is a company in the Czech Republic called Moser Glass, which is a small production company, 250 people, also concentrating on producing the handmade and going back to making things purely by hand. It is very, very important for them that the quality craftsmanship is small in quantity. Going back to what you were saying, Sean, it is about desirability, it's about the uniqueness of the product, it's about the rarity of it, it is about the conversation of the eye and the hand on the piece itself that is the provenance of this work, and has become the new answer for this company that was ailing a number of years ago. It is the new future for this company, is that they are starting to concentrate on making small production of quality handmade products that are completely handmade. And so they don't use any, fast processes. Everything is gone back into looking at the quality of that handcraft and working very, very successfully. The glass factory in Moser is supported by education as well, because in the Czech Republic there's a great tradition of glass schools feeding the glass factories. And this is not just happening in Moser Crystal, but also in Novi Bor, in the large centre from where our glass tradition actually came. They have glass schools, and young apprentices go there, but also lots of people are challenging the artistic process through these glass schools as well. And I know that many glass schools around the world, and indeed ceramic schools as well, are in financial difficulty and having a terrible time trying to make ends meet. And in Novi Bor, there is this arrangement between the glass school in Novi Bor and open access, where there is a company called Verium who are using the facility at the glass school to run their business from. So they actually can produce their glass work on the platform right beside the glass students. So you can see in this photograph in the front are the guys in the black t-shirts are actually the company, and then the guys in the orange t-shirts are the students, and they are producing commercial lines of glass, working with outsourcing designers such as Ronnie Plessel, who is running the glass school in glass and architecture in Prague, and he is in contact directly with this company, designing for them. They're making the work on the platform right beside the glass students who are learning from each other, and there's a real cross-fertilization there. The company can survive because they are just renting time, and the glass students are feeding both their new ideas into this glass company, etc. So there's a great cross-fertilization. They have a wonderful marketing scheme where they're working with product designers such as Eric Levi, who would also be producing furniture, very much on the scene, very much a well-known name, and people like Ronnie, who would be coming from the inside, knowing a huge amount about the actual material, which is a very, very important element. Unlike what was happening in Waterford here, getting fashion designers to work on glass, working from a knowledge base of the material and then pushing it out from the inside. Aieto Glassworks in the Czech Republic also is an open facility where designers can come and rent time and rent the actual craftsmanship. So you can either rent the teams or you can rent the actual building. So you can go in there, you can produce limited editions, you can do prototyping, you can work just for the day of the cost of a daily rental, which is a way forward. It's a way of actually using a skill that's already there. The blowers just have to respond to what the designers are looking for with a knowledge base coming from the inside, so that they're really working in tandem with each other from somebody who has this knowledge in their hands. And I know that Neil is going to be talking about it quite a lot later on, is this real tacit information that you have, that you carry with you, a legacy of not just what you learn in your own lifetime, but like Sean, what you've learned from all of the other generations of people who have gone before you. And so this is also a model that we could be using in Ireland with the skill force that we have here. Another way of working is just by renting yourself out as an individual, and this is Matteo Gonnet, who is based in Switzerland and rents himself and his workshop out only as a facilitator for making projects for artists and product designers. So people come to him if they have an idea, if they have a concept that they want to develop in glass. He will actually develop that whole concept with the skills that he has, and works together in tandem with that. And that's his whole basis on which he employs 4 people and has a small family. That's how he makes his living and survives. Product designers also have a huge role to play in pushing forward concepts, and it's not something that has really happened in Ireland either, where there are product designers really engaging, in different ways with glass in Ireland. This is Mendel Heit's work, who is a Berlin-based artist, and he has this is an idea of a novelty, which has been a huge, big product in Ireland. Thinking about novelties, I mean, how many people need a glass clock with a big thing stuck in the middle of it with carving all the way around? It was one of the greatest sellers in Waterford. This is a novelty item. It's a Christmas bauble, but just a refashioned one. And it has come from a tradition of Christmas bauble making, but sort of thinking about it in a different way. And Mendel Heit is a product designer who works in lots of different ways, and is one of the brainchildren behind an amazing movement, of which is quite common now, is open access information. It is a movement called Maker Lab, which is about opening up making ideas amongst a whole different fraternity of people. So it isn't just about glass, it's about lots of different disciplines. And what they do is a bit sort of like a flash mob. They set up somewhere in the middle of Berlin or in the middle of Milan and set up a temporary workshop where they cross-fertilize information and ideas with a total focus on open access and sharing information to refashion ideas and models of things that we already have or use. And it has to do with actual functional using things, but also bringing the access of actually making, bringing the physicality of making back into the hands of those people who never engage with making normally, or who are in the process of making. So it's a really interesting cross-fertilization of ideas and energies, and I think that is something that could also really work in Ireland. And then we have the Centre for the International Centre International de la Verrerie. It's the home of Émile Gallet, who was a wonderful French glass designer, and this is a kind of a model also, which is really interesting, which Ireland could also look at. Here we have a museum of the history of Gallet and the history of French glassmaking. There is an education centre which explains about how glass is made from a scientific point of view and a manufacturing point of view. And then there's an exploration lab where people can come and engage and really develop ideas about glass with the expertise of great makers. It's in Miesenthal in France. It is miles away from anywhere. It's sort of slightly near Strasbourg, but it is in a small country place. And here you have hundreds of people who come and visit this centre. Again, it has a craft-based cultural tourism aspect. It has a huge worldwide educational aspect, and it has a really innovative core. And it is about trying to rid glass of its nostalgic sort of framework in which we are really guilty of presenting it in Ireland, of having this mad nostalgia about making, which now in this present time, where we have 10 glassblowers working in Waterford, and most of our glassblowers who are making Waterford are now either living in Germany or in the Czech Republic or, soon in China. So that they're trying to move it forward, to try and find new technologies, to try and find new ideas, new concepts about how to do that and how to work with the skill base to move that forward. And I think that CIAV would be a really great model to look at and to use that possibility. So I'm just have another 2 slides to show you. This piece is called Ver de Fjord, which is the original name for Waterford. It's the oldest city, bar London and Paris, which was founded by the Vikings. And it's the name of a city, but it's also the name of a brand. And even though it has been, the most important centre for making glass in Ireland, it doesn't have a museum, it doesn't have a school, it doesn't have an apprenticeship programme, it doesn't value the history or the future of what's actually happening in glass. And for me, I think there is something that we must do to hang on to the legacy of what we have, the importance of what we should have, and the future of what we will have. Because it's right here, right now, and the world over is investing in making glass schools, in informing people, in educating people. Look around us, we use glass every single day in every single part of our life. We use glass, but yet in Ireland, for some reason, we are not hanging on to those skills and using them while we actually have them now. I know that Neil will be talking about what has happened already and the skills that are already lost in Britain. But right now in Ireland, we have this skill. We have an unbelievable amount of it with a great, great expertise. And there are so many different ways in which we can actually really use them, both from a cultural point of view, from a historic point of view, and for the future as well. And so what I really want to do today is to make that call that we look at creative options. I've given you some of them that are actually here right now, and I know that there is a financial implication to investing in that, but I think that what could actually happen if we don't do that is far more tragic for both us as a making nation, as it is for the iconic brands that we associate with Ireland, such as crystal making. So.